Hello and welcome back to Stock Market Weekly. I'm your host, Evan Medeiros. This is the show where we break down the notable moves across financial markets. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. It's summertime. We're going to keep this as short and actionable as possible. There wasn't a tremendous amount happening this week, so let's dive right in. Before we do, our sponsor, IBD Investors Business Daily, shout out to them. Take advantage of the offer they have for trade risk customers here in the description of this video. It's their market surge platform. I use it every day. Check it out, do some research, build some watch lists, find some trade ideas with Market Surge, and the link in the description of this video. Now, a few things on tap here this week. Front and center, I think, was the moving of the goalposts of tariffs and then tariffs getting applied to certain countries. To be totally frank, I cannot keep up with where things fall right now. It seems like the narrative just keeps weaving and the goalposts are moving. And so now I think we're looking into August on a lot of the tariff deadlines. The July deadlines apparently didn't happen, but then it did for certain countries. So just kind of a confusion whirl, at least personally for me. Maybe other folks have a better handle of where tariffs stand. But this was kind of moving the markets a bit to start the week, but we mostly digested this week. It didn't seem too scared of what was happening. I think the front and center story here this week was Bitcoin. Bitcoin breaking out to new highs. I think this sucked a lot of the oxygen out of the room from perhaps traditional finance markets. You know, S&P 500 stock indices were basically flat this week. Bitcoin finally saw a big kind of push higher this week. I posted this chart back on July 2nd. This was kind of the setup here, a beautiful technical pattern. You can hate Bitcoin, you can love it. But if you just observe the technicals, block out the symbol, and you look at what was setting up here, this was a fairly kind of explosive pattern here, sitting just under all-time highs on July 9th, right before the fun started. I posted this on Twitter basically saying, hey, you know, it looks like the fireworks are going to be starting soon. Certainly don't know the direction, but the squeeze was getting tight. The setup was there, and we just needed the nudge to get us out of that range. And there it is. So we got a big, you know, kind of inflow of volume here. We get a push up towards 120, got about 118, I think, 118.5 on the highs. So this trend continues to move up into the right. New all-time highs here for Bitcoin. Congrats to the bulls involved. Now, if we get back to traditional markets here, they were flat to down, right? So it was mostly a digestion week, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've covered a lot of ground here in the indexes and in many stocks. So a little bit of digestion, a little bit of sideways here is, you know, healthy, generally speaking, I would say. You can see that everything was down. Dow Jones was down the hardest. If we take a look at the SPY here on the week, again, we did try and push up to start off the week. Then we kind of rolled over a little bit. This Monday was a gap down session. And again, you can see if we just look on the right-hand side here, really just kind of establishing a little bit of a range here, a little bit of a digestion, maybe some rotation, and we'll see how, I believe next week is OPEX week. And more importantly, next week starts off earnings season. So we are in summertime trading. That is lighter volume. Things can get sleepy, but we are coming into earnings season. So we should have some fresh catalysts for the market to chew on. If we take a look at volatility here, I mean, it's pretty much a snooze fest. We're at 16.4. We're back towards the lows of the year. We're kind of compressing down here, and things are just complacent. They're just kind of chugging along here. Again, some of the tariff flare up that we saw to start off the week. You saw the VIX jump up a little bit here on some of those headlines, but then they quickly just kind of got sold down, and there doesn't seem to be any, big sustained fear out there in the market right now. One thing that has changed is the dollar index is starting to get a little bit of a bid. We talked a little bit about some of the stabilization that was going on last week. Well, you can see that we are starting to push up here again, still in just an overall downtrend. So let's not get too excited here. It's been very difficult for the dollar to sustain a move. The world really seems to just be, in a sell dollar mode. and sort of moving away from the dollar. And so the structural trends, the longer term trends are still very much down, but we are getting, a little bit of a bounce here. And kind of with that is 10-year treasury yields, or yields in general, are starting to move back up as well. So you can see the 10-year now is moving back up towards that big round 4.5% level. We've been hovering sideways. Again, it's just been a choppy mess here. I think there's excitement when we start to get to these extreme ends of the range. But, when you kind of zoom out here, throw on some moving averages, it's just been choppy, noisy, and more of the same. Again, I think all else being equal, if you're a big equity bull here, particularly in tech and growth, you want to see this go the other way. But I'd say if we just hang out here in between a 4% and a, 4.6% range, then markets are probably going to handle it just fine. If we take a look at sector performance this week, it was a pretty split race here. So energy was the top performer, followed by utilities and XLI. On the downside, financials, communication services, and staples were the hardest hit here, down about 1.5%. So stock picking sort of mattered this week, depending on what sector you were in. It wasn't just tide lifting all boats. There was some there were some different moves going on out there. Now, if we take a look at our smart trend filter indicator, this is available for TC2000 users and TradingView users. We can see that we still have 7 market sectors that are in a bullish state right now. So a pretty good, healthy, breadth reading, so to speak, in terms of under the hood moves. If we go to the neutral state here, you can see there's just some more slightly more this week. Sectors starting to chop around and just show some mixed signals. So again, not the end of the world, maybe some rotation, maybe some digestion, maybe a small pullback, right? Completely fine before an earnings season to just let a little of that anxiety out, take some chips off the table after a good run, and then we kind of see where the news flows into earnings season and into OPEX week. Now, 52-week highs and lows, I mean, again, this is still constructive. We're not seeing big blowout numbers here. We're not seeing a surge of stocks hitting 52-week highs, but we are still seeing, the dominant trend, of course, as one would expect, as the indices are at highs. We're still seeing more stocks making new 52-week highs than we see stocks making 52-week lows. So that's constructive. Again, you always kind of want to see a little bit more. Not too much, not a blow-off number, but you still want to see just, a steady, nice grind higher here under the hood of 52-week highs and lows. And, so far it seems to be, reasonable. Percentage of stocks above a 20 SMA, again, we're hanging out towards the upper band of where markets tend to oscillate between. So we're still kind of in that upper level. Again, rotation, some sideways, right? Stocks taking a breather. I think those are all reasonable things up here. Put to call ratios, nothing exciting happening. Silver, so that's kind of all the major indices here. Silver is interesting this week. I posted this on, I believe, this day here, but made a nice kind of breakout move. Look at the volume coming in here. Copper as well. So some of these industrial metals, again, go back to, say, the AI trade, the data center build outs, all the stuff happening there is fueling a lot of this move, and the market really starting to, again, just continue to reward this sector with capital. But silver seeing a nice fresh breakout here. Good technical pattern, looks good for higher. Financials, like we said, are reporting earnings next week, so they're going to mostly be the kickoff, right? As it always is, the big money center mega banks kind of kick off earnings season each year. You can see that financials are kind of sitting at an interesting spot here. They're coming back in and checking these, retesting, so to speak, the early January highs here. So this would be a great spot to see a bid kind of come in. Maybe, we're going to need to see what earnings actually look like for banks. And then, we can go from there. We know that the health of these institutions are pretty, top notch from any recent history. We just got boosted dividends and boosted buybacks, right? So we know the financial health of these banks are in good standing. I think it's more just the outlook and maybe getting some of those catalysts and those reports behind the market before before we see any more of an uptrend. Other big story this week was Nvidia. So congrats to the bulls there. $4 trillion market cap, first company in history to to hit the $4 trillion mark. We broke out of these prior highs here. We were in a big range for some time, wide range, right? But, lo and behold, we, kind of rose from the depths here, broke out, and now we got Nvidia moving on up, and that goes for semiconductors as well. So semis making new highs, Nvidia as well. So again, congrats to the bulls there. That's a trend that's working, and been posting the ratio chart of SMH or semiconductors relative to the Qs. That's a good leading indicator, or just at least a good indicator of risk appetite, and that's still trending up and to the right. I was going to put it in today's slide deck, but we've talked about it plenty in recent videos. Now, a few other ideas here. I want to, again, short video. I want to just kind of wind down with some individual stock ideas from our new Quant Rockets dashboard. MSTR. So MSTR, very polarizing stock. I posted this on X earlier this week. There is a pretty substantial pattern brewing here on the longer term basis. Strategy, for those who don't follow it too closely, is basically become a vehicle that covered call sellers are just absolutely hammering, right? The implied volatility of MSTR over the prior years were up around 80%, 90%, sometimes north of 100%. And so a lot of, kind of savvy income, interested folks just said, well, you know what, let's just sell the hell out of covered calls on strategy. And there's been a lot of popular ETFs that do that as well. So this stock has been largely, I think, kept at bay by a lot of the compression going on there. But we're coming into a big area here. Bitcoin is breaking out. I would just pay attention to this. Full disclosure, I do have a position here in MSTR, but the breakout potential is real. Again, we might get a wall of just delta, gamma, crushing effects from all these covered call funds, but I think it's an interesting play here, and it's certainly one that could move as things go along. Now, to give you some insight here, so last week we officially launched our Quant Rockets momentum dashboard. So it's really a research platform. It's a strategy embedded in a scanner, embedded in kind of a dashboard for traders. I encourage you to check it out with a link in the description of this video. But Quant Rockets here has initiated a buy setup in MSTR 9 days ago. So 385 or so is when we got involved here, and so far so good, right? So just a kind of a micro setup, but fitting into, of course, this big macro picture. And again, just has that explosive momentum potential behind it. Let's talk about a few other names that are interesting on our momentum dashboard here. So this is another QR setup here. And so we got an entry in Delta Airlines just 3 days ago. I saw this come through, and I skipped it just because an airline stock was just, I don't know, not that interesting to me. The longer term pattern was meh. And then, lo and behold, we got the breakout coming through. I think this was off earnings on Delta, or it might have been United, which both of these stocks look pretty similar, but United came on to Quant Rockets dashboard as well, recent buy setup, and then this had a nice gap up and breakout. So in terms of earnings, in terms of sectors and themes, Airlines was another one this week that we did get some, kind of news flow out of, some numbers out of, some guidance, and the market sort of responded to it pretty kindly. Last but not least, in terms of trade ideas that I'll showcase this week, there's plenty more ideas on our dashboard, but CEG. So SEG, has been just a good market leader, again, in that AI demand build out play theme, so to speak. This has been an entry. This was an entry since April. And so Quant Rockets has been kind of hanging out, enjoyed the initial move up, and then it's just been kind of hanging out here. And we've gotten some warning signals on momentum, but it's all been, kind of kept in check and maintained in our strategy. But it's starting to look a little interesting here again, right? We had this nice little consolidation that has been taking place. Looks like it's almost ready to start to move again. So I would pay attention to CEG. I think it's interesting. And it's a name that we like on our momentum dashboard. Last but not least, I'll leave you with earnings, and I did not fix this in this runoff off the screen, so apologies, but I think the big elephant in the room will be CPI next week. CPI will be something the market will at least respond to. It'll factor into Fed decisions and just the latest inflation data, so I think that would be the most interesting catalyst to pay attention to. And then, of course, earnings, which kick off middle of the week, I believe, with when it starts to really heat up, basically. So that's it. That's what I've got for this week, kind of keeping it short and tight. It was a pretty quiet news cycle, minus tariffs, Bitcoin, Nvidia, semis. Those were kind of the big standouts. There's a lot of interesting, and silver and copper, some interesting things going on overseas. Japan, the bond market over there, which we didn't cover in this week's video, but there's been a lot of steepening there and some interesting action. Maybe next week we'll follow up on it and cover it as well. So that is it. Thanks as always for tuning in every single Friday. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you like it. And don't forget to check out a new revamped trial experience and our Quant Rockets momentum dashboard. If that is your cup of tea, we got links in the description of this video. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the summer, and we'll see you back here next week.